On this super live unboxing, we're going to take a look at the Moondrop super spaceship reference, and that's a lot of S's, probably too many S's for me, so I'm going to stick with the other name that Moondrop gives us, the SSR. So what we've got here is a budget IEM from Moondrop, and this is a company that's, they've made what is probably my favorite IEM right now, the Moondrop Blessing. Not exactly the Blessing 2, not exactly the most budget IEM, but what we've got here is legitimately budget. The Moondrop SSR is going to come in around 40 bucks. And compare that to some other budget earphones that they've made. They've got the Moondrop Spaceship, which ostensibly this is some sort of like upgrade from. That you can still get for around 20 bucks. And then previously they had the Moondrop Crescent for 30 bucks. So this is a little bit pricier than those, but I think it's got something that you're going to be interested in. So unlike those other budget Moondrop IEMs, the SSR, the Super Spaceship Reference, it's got a removable cable. And maybe that doesn't seem like the biggest deal to you, but for a lot of people, it's kind of a deal breaker. And for me, not necessarily, but for a lot of people, not having a removable cable is a deal breaker. So having it here on the SSR is kind of nice. The other thing, and this is what I'm most excited about personally, I can see this right now, you can't see this right now, but I can see this right now. They've got a little frequency graph on the back of this box that suggests that they're going for a neutral tonality. And in the budget space, that's not exactly common. You might not want a neutral IEM, but I do tend to like me some neutral upper mid-range, little vocals, a little weeb perhaps. I mean, the box is definitely weeb. I don't know that I'm the most weeb. Am I the most weeb? I'm definitely not the most weeb, but I tend to like weeb sounds anyway. I don't know, let's go ahead and open up the box. We'll find out what we get inside the Moondrop SSR, and then, well, this is not a review, this is just a first look. So if you've got any questions, you want to know anything about it, feel free to leave a comment in the live chat. This is a live stream. If you're not watching it live, you're missing out, so go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Ding the bell and you'll get alerted next time I go live. For the rest of you, while I'm unboxing this, feel free to start asking some questions, and then afterward, I'll get to your questions. Without further ado, let's get to the spin. Oh, it was not the best spin, but this is live, so that's what we get. So what I've actually got sitting here is the original Moondrop Spaceship. Again, this is the Super Spaceship Reference. And I'm gonna have trouble saying that, so I apologize ahead of time. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at this box. So, like I mentioned, fairly strong on the weeb, and I guess I'm okay with that. It's not my style necessarily, but I think it's a pretty attractive box. Kind of Apple-like, actually, in a lot of ways. This almost looks like it could be a box for a pair of AirPods. You didn't hear me saying that. So down here on the side, we've got their website, moondroplab.com. Not much else on the sides, but then around here in the back, this is where we have what I alluded to, that frequency response graph. You see this basically from, what is that, 20 hertz to 1K hertz, which is pretty typical range for your lower mids, mid bass, and sub bass. This looks relatively flat, slightly mid bassy. I'll give it that. So this is this little hump right there. That means it's probably going to have a slight mid bass emphasis to it, but I can deal with that. And then right here, this rise, that's the weeb coming out of this IEM. And I think I'm going to like that. What else we can find out about the SSR from this box? So they claim beryllium plating dome, so there's some beryllium, I suppose, incorporated into the build of this IEM. The impedance of 16 ohms and sensitivity of 115 dB VRMS. And I gotta be honest, last time I got tripped up by this, the VRMS, I'm not super familiar with that metric versus the more typical dB SPL. So 115 doesn't sound especially sensitive on the VRMS schedule, or yeah, whatever. I'm just not that familiar with it. So anyway, yeah, I don't know, the rest of these specs don't mean too much to me, so let's go ahead and just open up the box and find out what's inside. That, for a $40 IEM, I gotta say, is a very, very nice presentation. What do you think? see what we got in here. I'm guessing we got our tips. Nothing else in there. And yeah, we've got a set of tips, and these look like pretty typical Moondrop tips. In fact, they appear to be the same tips that I've got here on the original spaceship. As they roll away, let's see if I can give you a look at them. We've got obviously your sets of large, you got your sets of medium, and we got your set of small. Nothing too out of the ordinary there. Normally I spare you guys this tedious placement of the ear tips, but I just feel like aesthetically it looks so much nicer than having them bunched up. All right, so here's the box. Let's go ahead and pull this thing out. We do have some instructions or some paperwork, which I'll do my duty to take a look at. So interestingly, so here they've got, right, the SSR brand, which we've already talked about, the Super Spaceship reference, but they've also alluded to this SSP, and this, I haven't seen much about this. I've seen some chatter on the Head 5 forums about the SSR, so I'm a little bit familiar with it before this unboxing. And the SSP, I've seen some allusions to it, but I don't really know what the difference is going to be, what they're going for. Obviously, they've got in mind some sort of line here and some sort of continuation, but I don't know. All right, well that manual appears to all be in Chinese, and so unfortunately I'm not going to be able to read that. I've not got that talent, but if you are a QR enthusiast, have at it. And finally, all right, I'll stop digging around and we can just pop these things out. Interestingly, so a lot of the times IMs will come with a set of 3 ear tips like this as well. They'll have the mediums pre-installed. So sometimes you'll get like double mediums. Here you don't, because they don't have anything pre-installed. Interesting. And this cable that it comes with is, let's see how much it wants to fight me. It's a little bit on the stiff side, but kind of a handsome cable, especially for, again, a $40 IM. That's not too bad. And then we get to the buds, and we will zoom in on that so you can take a look. Size-wise comparison, all right? So here is the original spaceship versus the Super Spaceship reference. Obviously fit width, the fit is very different. This is going to be more of a classical IEM fit over ear hook. I'm actually pretty into this general design of an IM. I feel like I have pretty high expectations for fit, and I'll go ahead and plug on the medium tip since I expect that's what will fit me. Maybe before I throw on the tip of this one, just to show you the removability of the cable, and we can take a look at the screen inside. I don't know, fairly typical. And there seems to be, I'm kind of interested, this almost looks like some venting here on the outside of the casing. But yeah, the case is made out of some sort of a metal alloy. It's got a nice little heft to it despite being tiny. And like, maybe it's not totally coming across how tiny it is, because the spaceship over here that I compared it to, also quite tiny. Do I have something else around me for a comparison? All right, you guys are gonna love this. There's your AirPods. So here's a single AirPod versus the SSR. Yeah, the SSR is tiny. But yeah, I mean, that's probably about as much as I'm gonna be able to tell you about this earphone without spending some quality time living with it. So if you've got any questions about it, if you've got any questions about the build, I'll go ahead and try it on to show you how it fits. But if you've got any particular questions, please hit me with it. And yeah, seriously, these things are minuscule in, I think, a positive way. What do you think? So that sits super, super flush in my ear. I expect this is going to be a pretty nice sleeping earphone. The cable is not quite as nice as some of Moondrop's other cables, but if I'm perfectly honest, like, I like this better than the cable that comes on the spaceship and the and the Moondrop Crescent. So one thing you can see about this cable is, well, let's see if you can see it. I actually don't know if I can show it to you here. I'm gonna show it to you on a table because that will give the full effect. It just has kind of strong memory and it always wants to wind itself back up. Doesn't seem to be the case here with the SSR cable, and that's pretty nice. So yeah, I mean, that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at these questions. If all you wanted to do was see what this thing looks like, that is the end of the unboxing. But if you've got some questions, you're curious what people are talking about, let's get to it. Got a lot of chatter here, so I'm guessing, I have a feeling a lot of people are pretty interested in the SSR. We got Toasters Make Tea doing a dab. I'll give you a dab. I think my favorite dabber is another YouTuber, Camera Conspiracies. If you're into photography and camera stuff, he does the best dabs. Riken Ninja saying, holy, my prayers are answered. I'm curious, what is your prayer exactly? Is it the SSR unboxing? Because if I'm being honest, I think you should aim higher. You should ask for more. You should ask for more than just an unboxing, but we'll give it to you eventually. I will be doing a full review of these. In fact, I've got a couple of other IEMs that I want to compare this to because the budget space, I haven't been spending as much time in the budget space. I kind of got disappointed a little bit too much. So it's been a while since I've reviewed a budget IEM. The SSR, obviously 40 bucks. That's pretty budget. I've also got over here the Blonde BL05, which I think cost around 34 bucks, maybe 35 bucks. So it's priced very similarly to this. Very interested to check that out. And then I also think that I've got the T2 Plus, the 10 T2 Plus on the way. Might be a week or so before it gets here, but it feels like we're setting ourselves up for a nice budget shootout. Shoot off, I was gonna say. Shoot off is not a word. Nobody says that. Riken Ninja saying Crescent with over-ear design. I mean, the Moondrop Crescent, I think I wore that over-ear. You know, it's a very similar design to the original spaceship. It's just like this little bullet style IEM that you can fit in. And the cable, obviously by default, is just kind of hanging down, but you can totally wear it over-ear. And in fact, that's the way I wear both of these IEMs. I feel like wearing these things over-ear has the effect of, one, making them a little bit more secure, even though the design isn't necessarily over-ear. Wearing them that way does make them more secure for me. It also reduces any effects of microphonics. So if you have like these things plugged in your ear and the cable runs up against a zipper or something like that, sometimes that friction sound can get kind of transmitted into your ear, almost like a stethoscope. And it's not very pleasant, but wearing your earphones over ear will usually mitigate that problem quite a bit. Eric Young asking, where can I get it? I looked, I could not find the SSR for sale anywhere yet. I'm sure places like Shenzhen Audio are gonna have it. I'm sure there's gonna be a number of places that have it, but currently not listed. It seems like, from what I can tell on HeadFi, it looks like July 15th, or June 15th, sorry. June 15th is the official launch date. So I would look for it then, which the 12th, so it's like 3 days from now. Pretty soon. Oh, Neatlit followed up. Thank you, Neatlit, for following up, also clarifying the June 15th release date. So yeah, look for it on the 15th. I'll add a link to Shenzhen Audio, which I think they're the ones that sent this to me. Garth McKeel saying, is it tuned only for Miyazaki soundtracks? And maybe, we'll find out. I haven't listened to it yet, but I wouldn't mind that. Neatlit following up, the OG Spaceship was pretty much only good with Weeb, so it's pretty much tuned for Miyazaki soundtracks, lol. Yeah, so I gotta be honest, the first time I heard the Moondrop Spaceship, I didn't like it. It just, I don't know, it's very upper mid-rangey, very, very upper mid-rangey. And not to like the point that it was fatiguing or anything, it just kind of tonally shocked me. But I heard some pretty good things about it, so I gave it a chance anyway. I ordered it. It's only 20 bucks, and I actually found that I actually quite like the way that this thing sounds. It just took me a little bit of adjusting to. And mostly I think that my initial impression was probably more down to the contrast of whatever I was listening to before that, which I feel like might have been something like the Sony XBA5. Just a little bit of a bassy IM, and the Spaceship, not especially bassy, although it's got some mid-range bass emphasis on it. And yeah, Wintlock asking how much was it again? Yes, 40 bucks. 39 bucks if you want to be pedantic, but $39.99 probably. But yeah, $40 IM, which is not bad. Considering what's like the last, I don't know, in this price range, sub $50, what I tend to recommend is either the Tin Hi-Fi T2 or the Blonde BL03, kind of depending on if you want a bassy IM like the Blonde, or you want something a little bit more neutral, a little bit more vocal focused like the Tin T2. I'm gotta be honest though, I'm a little bit tired of recommending those. Not that like they're not good anymore, but I feel like I need some new recommendations. People want new stuff, and maybe the SSR is gonna be that. James Cruz saying, if I'm gonna do a first listen, tell us what the bass is like. The graph looks kind of worrying, but I've heard it sounds similar to the Starfield. So that's interesting. So obviously the graph, we looked at the graph. That's the graph that Moondrop takes, so take that with a grain of salt. But according to that graph, it does not look like it's gonna be a very bassy IM. It is a dynamic driver. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it is a dynamic driver. So what bass there is, it's probably gonna have, you know, some decent texture. It's not gonna be quite as bass light as a similarly tuned BAIM. In fact, what's actually kind of interesting is looking at, I was going through that Head-Fi thread, the Moondrop, just like a thread about Moondrop IAMs, and Moondrop is very active in that thread, which is really cool to see from a company. But they did mention something about the ER2 XR, the Etymotic ER2 XR being similar to this. Now, I kind of find that surprising because the ER2 XR I find is actually a really pretty bassy IM, and not like bassy in the Blonde BL05 sense, but, or BL03 sense. It's not that kind of bassy, but for a neutral tuned IEM, the ER2 XR is, I think, on the bassy side. I have a feeling this is going to be less bassy than the ER2 XR. We'll find out. Felipe Hilario saying the cable looks yuck. I don't know, what do you think? Like, that's not too bad in my opinion. Usually the biggest problems that I have with cables, right? I don't want a cable that keeps its form too much when I unwind it. And this thing just came out of a box from shipping overseas, and it's relatively straight, so I'm actually pretty happy with that. The other things you don't want with a cable is, I don't know, the Tin T4 had a uniquely sticky cable. Not a big fan of that, but look at this. Like, we'll wind it up. Maybe I'll wind this up and throw it on a table, and we'll see. This is the other thing that I don't want to see in a cable, is I don't want it to fight me. All right, so I've just wound this up. Let's see how well it sits. I feel like that's a passing grade from me. So it's not braided, it's not especially fancy, but I do think I like this cable on initial impressions. James Cruz was adding a little bit about the SSP. Remember, this is the SSR, but adding a little bit about the SSP, saying that it's supposedly a bassier version of the SSR. I'm kind of interested to see if, will this end up being a little bit more like the ER2 SE, and the SSP turns into something closer to the ER2 XR. That'd be kind of interesting if Moondrop has got like a pretty competitive sound in the sub $50 price range with those ER2s, because those ER2s sound fantastic. They cost around 115 bucks, which I think for the sound quality is actually a really good price, but not everyone wants to spend north of 100 bucks for an IEM, so possibly the SSR is a neutral option for us. Neatlit saying, hopefully they tune down the 3K on the SSP2. I'm kind of curious, do you think that the 3K on this graph, that's not a graph at all. Do you think the 3K on this graph looks like too much? You know, it's always hard to tell when it's a graph from a different source than your normal source, and my normal source is Critical. So it's hard to interpret this exactly, but looking at Moondrop's own graphs of the original spaceship, I think this 3K peak was quite a bit higher. The Moondrop spaceship graph kind of looked, I would say that the mid-bass bump was quite a bit higher, maybe like an extra 5 dB higher. And then the 3K bump seemed like maybe another 5 dB higher. And then this part of the upper mid-range seemed a little bit less filled out. It seemed like it was a little bit more weeb than that graph looks, but I don't know. We'll find out when we listen to it. Oh yeah, I do see some chatter about the Y-split. This is the thing that's on every Moondrop IEM that I've gotten recently. It's not my favorite, but I've gotten used to it, I suppose. In fact, I've ended up actually really liking the cable that came with the Moondrop Starfield. I got that on my Moondrop Blessing, and even with this little hockey puck in the middle of it, I still like it. Sorry, still reading through the comments. There's a lot more chatter here than normal, so I appreciate that. Maybe it's everyone's excited about the SSR. Maybe it's a Friday evening and you guys are happy to have some time off. I am. Looking forward to the weekend. What are you guys up to? Tark asking if it's a 7.5 cable or, sorry, a 0.75 cable or a 0.78 millimeter cable. I'm pretty confident it's a 0.78. Moondrop tends to do 0.78, and it would be surprising if they did differently, but I don't think there's any specs here on the back of the box that indicate that. Oh no, there actually is a spec on the box. 0.78. Andrew asking how's the comfort on these. When I initially saw these, I was interested in them as some sleeping IEMs. So yeah, that was the first thing I thought when I put these things in my head, is these things fit super flush. Like looking at you straight on, can you even see them? You can probably see them a little bit, but that is about as flush fitting as most IEMs get. So that's pretty good. The only thing to maybe watch out for if you're sleeping in this IEM, and man, let's get this stuff out of the way. The one thing to keep an eye out on is, you see how relatively long this protrusion is relative to the rest of the body? Basically, when this thing fits in your ear, there's not gonna be a lot of chunk here to press up against the concha of the ear. And so all the pressure is kind of gonna get applied to your ear canal via this long nozzle. And this part right here is probably not gonna make much contact with your concha before that happens. So just something to watch out for. That said, like, I've slept in edemotics and still got my ears, so I think you'll probably be fine. James Cruz is asking about personal thoughts on the design. Missed the parts of the stream. I think aesthetically, this is a really cool look. It's so simple and like understated, but very unique actually too. I don't know, it's almost got the shape of a heart, which I don't have any particular opinions about that, but it's kind of, I don't know. I think it's actually a really neat look, especially again, for a budget, for a $40 IEM, I'm actually pretty blown away by the build of this. I'm full on in the camp of, I like this cable and I love the way that these things look. I think the fact that they're metal, that they fit so well, I'm pretty excited about this. Hopefully it sounds as good as those other aspects of it. Eitan Gulish is asking, am I gonna review any more DAPs? And the answer is yes. I've actually got the new Heidi's AP80 sitting over here. I believe that's the model number on it. That's the thing I'll be unboxing soon as well, and I will be doing a full review of that. I think it's around 150. It's a sub $200 digital audio player, compact one, which is kind of what I like the best personally. Garth McKeel saying cable looks less tangly than KZ, and definitely. Look, let's see if I can do a tangle test. Is this a test of anything? I don't know, you guys tell me, but that was pretty good. 0 tangles. I gotta say, I'm pretty into this cable. This is the kind of cable that, like, if Moondrop were to sell this thing separately for like 30 bucks, I'd probably buy a couple of them. Not too shabby. Yogi was asking me, is this a final retail unit? The housing looks doesn't do it for me. Yes, I do believe this is a final retail copy of the Moondrop SSR. The housing look, I don't know, what do you think? So you're saying you don't like it that much. I quite like this. It's not especially like finished or fancy or anything like that. It's very simple and understated. The shell is not, you know, maybe it would look nicer if it was the polished stainless steel of something like the KXXS, but ostensibly it would cost more then too, and for 40 bucks, I don't really have any complaints about this at all. Sebastian saying, wait, you're not wearing blue? Wait twice if you need help. I'm okay, I'm okay. I just happened to get off work and I was wearing my MKBHD getup. Felt like I'd represent as an MKBHD fan. But I did have to throw in the blue on my hat just to make sure. Wintlock asking, is it a single dynamic driver? Yes, a single dynamic driver. Again, they claim some beryllium coating. Not that that necessarily means much to me, especially because beryllium tends to be, I mean, when companies tend to emphasize their beryllium drivers, usually it's a basey IM, and clearly that's not what Moondrop is going for. But not that big base is the only benefit of beryllium. Just I don't know how much stock to put into the different coatings that they put on drivers, right? I've also got the, you know, big fan of the Koss KSC 75, which claims a titanium coating, which sounds really cool until you look at the internals, and it basically looks exactly the same as the non-titanium coating on the PortaPro drivers, and when I put them on a PortaPro headband, they sound like PortaPros to me, so I don't know. Russell Lee asking, can we get a close-up of how it fits and looks? So we can. I'll go ahead and put this thing in and we'll try and focus on my head up close. I'm gonna warn you, this might make you a little bit sick because my autofocus system on my camera is not the greatest, but let's try it out. All right, so I'm gonna get really close. We're focused, and now here you go. What do you think? That's pretty flush. Here's like the outside of my ear. The outside of my ear is beyond, I would say, the outside of this. And I've got the medium tips on it. I do actually kind of wonder if I put the smaller tips on, I might even be able to get it to fit a little bit deeper if you're into that deep insertion. But yeah. Hopefully you got what you wanted out of that. And hopefully I can get my camera to focus back on me. Let's go, bro. All right. Russell Lee was asking AP80 or AP80 Pro. It's the new one, so I think it's the AP80 Pro. The Heidi's DAP that I'll be reviewing soon. Shovik asking, hi bro, hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty well, how you doing? Do I have any plans to review the Mangrid T? And the answer is no, I don't think I've actually even heard of the Mangrid T before you mentioning it right now. So if you've got a link, paste that link because I'm kind of curious to check that out, but no, I don't have any plans at the moment. Octato saying, it looks like it has a lot of wiggle room. How's the wiggle in your ear? So yeah, like I kind of mentioned when I was showing that up close, right? The body of the IEM doesn't, there's not a lot of body to it. There's not a lot of girth to it. So in my ear, basically the contact points are my ear canal. I've got the ear tip inside my ear canal. I've got the nozzle sticking out, and then the rest of it's just kind of like free floating inside of the concha of my ear. And that doesn't bother me. I don't know, does that bother people? I'm kind of curious. But that sort of thing I'm pretty okay with. James Cruz saying, wait, you actually sleep with Etymotics? Yes, I actually sleep with Etymotics. The ER2 XR, I go to sleep with fairly often. I will say I'm almost primarily, almost entirely a back sleeper. So that definitely helps. But yeah, I don't roll around too much. So I guess that also helps. But so far I've gotten through many nights without puncturing my ears. Russell Lee was asking about noise isolation. I would say it sounds about average. The sound isolation is about average for this, maybe even slightly above average, just because of, you know, that relatively lengthy nozzle. Again, let's do that close up so you can see it. That relatively lengthy nozzle allows this thing to fit fairly deep into the ear canal and gives pretty strong isolation, I'd say. And then Jaws asking how heavy they are. I would say that they're not very heavy, but that's because it's a really small IEM. That said, the build on it is pretty dense, and so they've got a nice weight to them. Despite the fact that I just said they're not heavy, for the size, they've got some nice density to them. It feels like a pretty quality product. It doesn't feel cheap. Again, for 40 bucks, I'm pretty impressed already. We'll find out what it sounds like. And then Bith Chandra is asking, does the sub bass roll off? Based on the graph that we saw, here's our graph. And again, this is Moondrop's own graph, so we'll take this with some grain of salt. But it does look like the bass is, for the most part, flat. There is a bit of a mid-bass emphasis, but I don't know, that looks like it's like 1 or 2 dB, so I wouldn't characterize this really as a roll-off. I also wouldn't characterize it as a lot of bass, so if you're looking for a bassy IM, you might want to wait for the SSP or the Blonde BL03 or something like that. And I think that's going to bring us to the end of this introduction. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for your questions. Always love that stuff. And if you're interested in participating in the next super live unboxing, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Ding the bell. I think YouTube will let you know when I go live. And then I'll see you on the next super review, which might be a review of this.